So good to be back, and welcome you to our call. I've had a couple exciting weeks with with our grandchildren, and it's just been a whirlwind. Just like Frank said, it's just I needed to clone myself. I had so many things to do, and summer's that way. Summer always puts maybe a few wrinkles in our daily activities, which in turn, we plan on, but it's family or it's exciting things that we want to do, and in turn that makes us work extra hard to do a catch up. And speaking of catch up, have you ever felt like you needed a course to catch up on how to read labels on your food? Have you ever spent hours in the grocery store trying to unlock the mystery of what's in that food that you're eating? I find that pretty scary. So this morning, I have the privilege of introducing a very, very special friend of Ennis and I. It's Dr. Alan Organ. And Dr. Alan is a master at understanding how different foods interact with our body, which is so important. We think we're doing really well, but in reality, we might be sabotaging our health. So this morning, Alan is going to walk us through the food labels and help us understand how important serving sizes is, a percentage of daily value, or not to mention the total fat. All that seems like Greek to me when I read those labels. So Alan, I know you're on with us, and I know you're ready to get started and retrain our brains so we don't read or are influenced by all the hype on the packages, but rather we calculate the real value of our food that we're consuming. So good morning, Alan.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very good. I can hear you wonderfully.
Good. Well, this all started when one of my downline asked me, how come one of my customers has been on SlenderX and lost weight and all of a sudden can't seem to lose any more weight? And I said, it might be something that they're eating. And I started exploring this, and then I realized I didn't know as much about food labels as I thought I did. And so I started researching this for my students and for my downline, and I came up with some very interesting things. We have a new food label now. It's entitled Nutrition Facts, and it's supposed to be on every package of every food that we buy. I keep remembering what Deanna Latson once said. She said that we have this mindset that when we walk into a grocery store, that everything on the shelf is healthy for us. Well, that's far from the truth. And after we get done today, it's just like the movie Jaws. Just when you thought it was safe to go back into the water, the sharks came. Well, the next time you go to the grocery store, you're going to be scared because you're going to spend hours reading labels and finding out some things in there that you were scared about. So what's new about this new label? It's now called Nutrition Facts. It's simple. Healthy eating has never been easier, but you need to understand what you're reading. Most foods in the grocery store must now have this nutrition label and an ingredient list of everything that's in there. So if you understand what you're reading when you read the label, you can buy with confidence. So when they have claims of low cholesterol or fat-free, they can only be used if the food meets the new legal requirements set by the government. So we're going to talk about that today, and then I'm going to show you some pitfalls as to why people fail in their diets or plateau and then can't seem to get over the next hump. So when you read the label, it helps you choose foods that make up a healthful diet. And obviously, eating a healthful diet can help reduce your risk factors for some diseases. If you eat too much saturated fat or cholesterol, this can raise cholesterol, which is a major risk for heart disease. If you eat too much sodium, that's been linked to high blood pressure. And again, high blood pressure is also a risk for heart attack and stroke. No one food can make you healthy. So you also have to change your lifestyle. You have to give up smoking if you smoke. You have to watch your weight. You have to exercise. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about the new label and give you some definitions. And, of course, you might have to go through this a couple of times before you really understand what's happening. But once you do this, it'll be much, much easier and very easy to teach everybody else. So if something is labeled fat-free on either the label or the box, the government says that means that there's less than a half a gram of fat per serving.
Okay, Alan,
Yeah.
Have you changed slides yet? Because we're not seeing any different slides.
No, I haven't changed any slides.
Okay,
I'm just
good.
doing
Okay,
another
sorry.
learning.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So if something is fat-free, it's less than a half a gram of fat per serving. Now, that's the key, per serving. What the box says per serving may not be exactly what I eat. My serving size may be totally different, so then you're going to have to take that into account when you're looking at what you're eating. If it's low fat, it's 3 grams of fat or less per serving. Something is labeled as lean, it's less than 10 grams of fat, 4.5 grams of which is saturated, and no more than 95 milligrams of cholesterol per serving. So that's the definition of lean. If something is light, L-I-G-H-T or L-I-T-E, it's 1/3 less calories or no more than 1/2 the fat of the higher calorie, higher fat version. So that means if there's 1,000 grams of fat in it, and I knock off 300 grams, so there's 700, which is still not safe to eat, I can legally label that food as light, okay? Cholesterol-free means less than 2 milligrams of cholesterol and 2 grams or less of saturated fat per serving. So cholesterol-free does not mean that there's no fat in there, and that's the pitfall that all of us have. So let's talk about some basic definitions that we're going to see on the next slide and then all the subsequent slides. Calcium. Calcium is a mineral that builds and maintains strong bones. It also helps prevent osteoporosis. Calories is just a term for the energy provided by our food or the nutrients that we eat. And again, the calories that are shown on the label are only for one serving. And it's what they arbitrarily say is a serving. Calories from fat are just the fat calories shown on the label, again, for just one serving, their serving size, not ours. Cholesterol is a necessary nutrient from animal-based foods, and we use it, we carry it in our bloodstream. The LDL cholesterol is the bad cholesterol. That's the one that causes the heart disease. And the HDL cholesterol is the good one that helps erase heart disease. Daily value is the amount of certain nutrients that most people need each day to remain healthy. Okay? A nutrient is an ingredient of food that provides nourishment or nutritional benefit. The nutritional fact label that I keep talking about is the black and white box found on the food and beverage package, usually on the side or the back, and it's now required on all foods that are produced in this country, and a lot of other countries are adding the same thing, okay? The percent daily value, it says percent DV. That's the percentage of a nutrient found in one serving of food based on the established standard of 2,000 calories per day. Saturated fat, that's a type of fat that's solid at room temperature. It's usually animal-based, and it's obviously associated with certain health risks, especially heart disease and stroke. Sodium is a dietary salt that's important in the diet. However, if we consume too much sodium, it can lead to high blood pressure and risk of heart disease. As a matter of fact, our ancestors 40,000 years ago ate practically no salt and 50,000 milligrams of potassium, and nobody had high blood pressure. Total fat is the combined fats that provide energy to the body. Now, you have to understand, fats are not dangerous if they're the right fats. Fats are the body's most efficient way of storing energy. Obviously, some types of fats are healthier than others, so something that's low in LDL cholesterol and high in HDL cholesterol is much better. Trans fat is a type of fat that's created when a liquid fat is turned into a solid during manufacturing. It has no dietary value. It should be replaced with unsaturated fat in our diets whenever possible. So you need to avoid trans fats at all costs. And when I go through the end of this, I will tell you how they can hide trans fats in a product and call it trans fat free. And then the last definition that you need to understand is unsaturated fat. That's a type of fat that is liquid at room temperature, and it can either be plant-based or animal-based, and these are usually the good fats. So let me take you on a journey now, but now I just need to give you a couple more guidelines. If you read not on the nutrition facts label, but on the box, and they make a health claim, like something for heart disease and fats, the food has to be low in fat, low in saturated fat, and low in cholesterol, or they can't say that. If they talk about blood pressure and sodium, it has to be low in sodium. And if they talk about heart disease, so you can look at a fruit, a vegetable, a grain product that is low in fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol, contains some soluble fiber, which is good for the body, and there's no fortification of the food per serving. And again, everything is based on serving size. So let's go on. Maybe. All right. Here is a typical nutrition fact label. And it's not black and white. I've colorized it so that it's easier to see. And we're going to talk about certain things: serving size, the amount of calories, the percent daily value, some nutrients that we have to limit their size of, some that we have to get enough of the nutrients. And then there's always a footnote if the package is big enough to talk about daily values. Now, not every label will have that, because if it's a small package, they're not required to put that there. So let's go to serving size. All right? Serving size for macaroni and cheese, this is 1 cup, 228 grams, 2 servings per container. Well, that's a small box. Very frequently, we will go ahead and eat more than a serving size. So you have to double everything. So instead of 12 grams of fat, there's now 24 grams of fat, even though that you're thinking that you're eating only 250 calories, 110 of which come from fat. So again, check how many servings are in the food package. So if a package contains 50 or 60 servings, again, that's what they arbitrarily set as a serving size. And food companies use this to get around the federal law, because if they can whittle down the serving size small enough so that there's less than a half a gram of fat or 5 calories or less of sugar, they can say there's no calories from sugar or fat in that. And obviously there are. Okay? So again, when you look at serving size, here's the important thing. You have to compare the serving size to how much we normally would eat. Okay? So that's serving size. Now, let's look at amount of calories. In this example, 250 calories in 1 cup, 110 of which come from fat. Now, that's almost 50% from fat. Total amount of calories should be listed on the left, and the right side shows how many calories come from fat. Again, you have to look at the source of the calories with all of the nutrients. But this is pretty high. This is 50%. Okay? Now, when you come down to the next part, you're going to look at how much fat, how much cholesterol, and how much sodium. So when you eat too much fat, cholesterol, or sodium, we increase our risk for certain chronic and acute diseases: heart disease, cancer, blood pressure, just to name a few. And the goal is to stay below 100% of the daily value for each of these nutrients per day. So if a product says that the daily value is small, that means that there's not much nutrition for what we actually need. Or if it's nutrient-rich and it's a higher percentage of the daily value, that may be something that you want. All right. So again, when you use the quick guide to the percent daily value, and that's what a normal, healthy population needs to stay healthy. Okay? It's very similar to the recommended daily allowance that we used to stick on all of our products, especially our nutritional supplements. Okay, so when you look at, again, macaroni and cheese, you see that this is high in fat and high in sodium. Now, we want to make sure we get enough of certain nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and fiber. We're not certainly getting vitamins and minerals in the foods that we eat, because when I lecture, I always remind people that when my mother was pregnant with me, back in the Stone Age, she could eat enough pizzas, 2 pizzas a day, to get all the folic acid and vitamin A that were necessary to maintain the pregnancy. But if she were alive and pregnant today, she'd have to eat a bushel, 53 of the same peach, to get the same vitamin A and folic acid. So our nutrition today is far less than it was 50, 60, 70 years ago, all right? And what's important is that we get enough dietary fiber, since our ancestors got about 100 to 125 grams of fiber a day. The average American gets 1 to 3 grams. And fiber speeds things along our GI tract. Fiber helps feed the bacteria in our GI tract that help with our immunity and help prevent disease. And so if we don't get enough fiber, we get exposed to toxins too long in our GI system. So we want to make sure we eat enough of these nutrients so we can improve our health and other health problems. And in this example, 1 serving size provides you 20% of calcium your body needs for a day for good health. And that's good. It's a good amount, because calcium prevents osteoporosis, lowers our risk. Okay? But if you look down here, there's 0 grams of dietary fiber, and that's not good. We need the dietary fiber, which helps with our healthy bowel function and our immunity. So when you look here, we've got 4% vitamin A, 2% vitamin C, 20% calcium, which is the only thing that's really rich in 4% iron. Now, vitamin A is what's called a fat-soluble vitamin. We can store it. And so one of the things I talk about when we lose weight is that we have to make sure we get the fat-soluble vitamins. That's vitamins A, D, E, and K, because we lose them from our fat stores. The others, like vitamin C and the B and B complex, we have to take those every day. We have no capacity to store those. So if you don't eat the right foods that contain the water-soluble vitamins, you don't get them. Vitamins don't provide energy, but they help our body maintain our energy stores by burning fat and sugar. So we need to make sure we have enough of them. And then here's the footnote. It comes after the asterisk. This is the percent daily value based on a 2,000-calorie diet. Now, a lot of us are not on 2,000-calorie diets, so you'll have to adjust those. But you can see here, total fat should be less than 65 grams. This was not done by the food companies. This was done by health experts who know what we need. So now you can use the footnote and go back and look at these and see where we fit. Okay? Someone asked about the difference between soluble and insoluble fiber. That's a really good question. The soluble fiber is complex carbohydrates that our body can digest and make sugar out of. The insoluble ones we cannot digest. The bacteria that help us with our immunity in our GI systems, where 70% of our immunity is formed, can actually digest the insoluble fiber as a food for them so that they can do their wonders inside our GI tract. That was a very good question. All right. So let's go on now. Eating healthy starts with knowing about the facts of what you put in your mouth. Reading nutrition labels can help you make wise food choices, but knowing how to read the nutritional facts on a food label and not relying on those wonderful phrases that the food companies put on their packages of healthy or low fat is a key step. Because again, with a loophole in the federal laws as they stand right now, I can say something is healthy or low fat or fat-free and still contain a significant amount of fat. Okay? Being in better control of our eating habits help us have better control in other aspects of our life. Remember, food is not the enemy. We have been sustained on food for millennia. So we should consider eating should be an adventure and not an ordeal. So what I want to do in this presentation is help you make quick, informed choices that contribute to healthy eating through more informed label reading. Okay? So let's look at the different aspects of the label. Let's go back to nutrition facts again, all right? We start with serving size. So this is grape nuts. You can see the serving size is a half a cup, 58 grams, and there are 12 serving sizes in this box. I can tell you that I've never, ever had 58 grams of grape nuts. You always put much more in that, so when you think you're eating nutritiously, you may not be. So start with the serving size. We'll see the serving size that they have arbitrarily come up with and the number of servings per container. And serving sizes differ on each food label and obviously are not equal to the serving size one might normally eat. So if you eat twice the serving size, double all the nutritional facts. Okay? The next part of the label is the calories. Tally up the calories and calories from fat. That's very important. This section on the label tells you the total number of calories in each serving size of the food. And remember, if you have multiple food companies producing food, their idea of what the serving size is completely arbitrary. And there's no standardization between one company and another. So you have to look at that and imagine, is that what I actually eat, or do I eat more or less of that? Okay. So when you look at this section, this tells you the total numbers of calories in each serving of food and the number that are derived directly from fat. Calories just provide you a measure of how much energy you get from eating one serving of food. Now, the calorie equivalence for proteins and carbohydrates is 4 calories per gram, and for fats, it's a little over 9 calories per gram. That's why I said earlier that fat is the most efficient way that the body can store energy. And then if the body conditions are right, it can be mobilized very quickly to make glucose so that our hearts can function, our brains can function, and we can get out of danger or live off this is a bad pun, but live off the fat of the land. So if you're trying to manage your weight, either losing, gaining, or maintaining weight, the number of calories you consume obviously are very important. And for many people, this is the first and most important step to do on the label. You stop here. What is the calorie count? Okay? But sometimes a higher calorie food might be worth eating if it contains lots of nutrients. If it contains a low amount of nutrients, it fits into those foods that I frequently talk about, that we have a very palatable, non-nutritious diet in this country, which is why at this point 55% of Americans are overweight, and half of those are frankly obese. And in the next 15 years, 75%, 3/4 of Americans will be in that condition. So if we go back to our macaroni and cheese example, one serving of macaroni and cheese provides 250 calories with 110 from fat. If you ate 2 servings, you would consume 500 calories, 220 of which come from fat. So that's a lot of calories. Let's look at the next part of the label, total fat. Add up the total fat. Total fat includes fats that are good for us, and these are the monounsaturated or polyunsaturated or omega-3 fats. These usually come from liquids and plant sources such as nuts and canola oil. And then it also includes the fats that are not good, such as saturated and trans fats, which come from animal and vegetable sources also. Monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats have been shown to lower your blood cholesterol, protect our hearts. Trans fats, which are also known as hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated fats. These are formed during the process of converting liquid oils into solid fats, such as with shortening and stick margarine. So if you thought stick margarine was good, it's not. Butter is actually better than stick margarine. Shortening, you should stay away from anything that's cooked with shortening because that's just a solid stopper for your arteries. So why do we hydrogenate fats? It increases shelf life and stabilizes the flavor of these fats. And it's not the sugar that we crave. It's frequently the fat that we crave because fat makes foods taste good. Partially hydrogenated fats are currently considered the worst fats for our health. If most of the fat comes from healthy, unsaturated fat, we're good to go on the food that this label is on. If the fat is mainly saturated or the product has any trans fat, stay away from it, okay? Trans fats have been shown to increase levels of LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, while decreasing levels of good HDL cholesterol. So it becomes a double health whammy. And don't, again, be fooled by a label that lists 0 grams trans fats. Here's the funny thing. When the new labeling came out, there were a lot of companies that knew that trans fats were dangerous, and they never had trans fats in their products. So they relabeled their products to say, now with no trans fats. They never had trans fats before. But again, if it contains up to 0.5 gram of trans fat per serving, they are legally allowed to say it has none. And if you eat more than normal serving size, you end up with double the amounts of trans fats that are in there. So, and check the ingredient list. If it includes partially hydrogenated oil, then there's trans fats there. Shortening is another source of trans fats. So these are the things that you want to stay away from.
Alan?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
And going on with that, I've noticed that you go in to look at cookies, they'll say that the serving size is 1/3 of an inch or something like that. Anyway, it's not even a bite, some of those cookie sizes, and that's the way they get away from the hydrogenated oils, because you look down in the ingredients and it's listed as hydrogenated. So if you eat 5 or 6 cookies, and they're really only a bite size, you're eating hydrogenated oil, and that means that you are getting trans fats, even though the label says that you're not, because that serving size is so small. That's why serving size is so important with looking at when you look at oils.
Absolutely. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit because there's just some interesting things that that I didn't realize. Stefan, I will read the questions, but sometimes they come up so quickly that I miss the entire thing, but I'll be a little more vigilant. So the next part is sodium. Look at the sodium content. Sodium is also known as table salt, and it's a hidden ingredient in lots of the foods that we eat. Excess sodium can raise blood pressure. That, again, increases our risk for heart disease and may be a sign of a much more highly processed food. When I say highly processed food, that's not good for us, okay? Canned soups canned soups and tomato sauces, these are all high in sodium, okay? Try and set the cutoff at 805 grams or milligrams of sodium per serving. That's about 1/3 of the recommended daily limit, which is 2,300 milligrams or 2.3 grams of sodium. Sodium is very important. The higher amount, the more harmful it can be. The next part is how much cholesterol is in there, all right? This label will tell you how much cholesterol you're getting from one serving of food. Again, there are 2 types of cholesterols, HDL, which is known as the good cholesterol, and LDL, which is known as the bad cholesterol. But then again, if the fat content is less than 0.5 gram in a serving size, there's a loophole. They can say there's no cholesterol. So again, you may be eating more cholesterol than you really think. The next part of the label should be the carbohydrates. Okay, so you want to identify the total carbohydrates, and you can see in this cereal there's 26 grams of total carbohydrates, and I can't quite make out the dietary fiber on that, but the insoluble dietary fiber, you can subtract that away because we can't digest it. So total carbohydrates represents the total of all the different types of carbs we consume from eating one serving size of the food. This number doesn't distinguish between naturally occurring sugars like lactose in milk, fructose in fruit, and the added sugar like high fructose corn syrup or brown rice syrup. I didn't realize brown rice syrup was another word for sugar until I started researching this. So a better move is to look at the ingredients or sources of added sugar, and we'll see that on the next slide. So what are some of the words for sugar? Palm sugar, invert sugar, sweetener, such as corn sweetener, syrup, like brown rice syrup or malt syrup. These are all other words for sugars. Also watch for words that end in OSE, fructose, glucose, dextrose, maltose. Those are all sugars. If sugar is one of the first two ingredients in a label, don't bring it home. Ingredients are ordered by volume. So the higher up on the list an ingredient is, the more of a product it contains. This is an easy way to spot foods that include a lot of sugars. Now, naturally occurring sugars are not listed in these sugars. And so this method isn't foolproof. Manufacturers will split the sugars up into dextrose, high fructose corn syrup, cane crystals, and on and on and on. So none of them are the first ingredient, yet when you add them all up, they should be the first ingredient, or at least the second ingredient. So you might want to consider avoiding any product if there's sugar in more than one form, because all they're doing on the legal product label is going through a loophole and making it appear that there isn't as much sugar. So they have to label the total carbohydrates. And when you start looking at this, make sure that the total number of grams for total carbohydrates add up to all the grams of the sugars that are in there. Otherwise, they're hiding it somewhere. You can. I have seen labels that they're not quite the same as the amount of sugar that's actually in there. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Dietary fiber. Okay. Work out the fiber content. This number tells you how many grams of dietary fiber is in just one serving of food. It's the undigestible portion of plant food. Look for at least 3 grams per serving in any product that contains grains, including bread, crackers, pasta, and even some soups. Remember, our ancestors ate 100 to 150 grams of fiber every day. The average American eats 1 to 3 grams of fiber per day. Next part of the label that we need to look at is how much protein is in there. This tells us how much protein you can expect to get from consuming, again, just one serving of food. Stefan, someone's having problems with their slides not advancing. Mine are advancing. Is that a problem for everybody or just one?
They are advancing here.
They're advancing
How
with
about
me.
you, Arlene?
Yes, mine are doing wonderful. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe that person just needs to refresh their page or something.
Yeah.
If you're on a Windows
their
Windows
network.
machine, hit F5. That'll refresh your screen. Oh, it worked. All right. Thank you. All right. Vitamins and minerals. Look at that section of the label. The food substance that the label is on may contain several vitamins, such as A, B, C, or E, as well as important minerals like iron or calcium. But again, if they're low in that, and you're trying to maintain a healthy body, you might consider other foods that are much higher in those nutrients. And then the next part of the label is the percent daily value. So always followed by an asterisk. So it'll be an asterisk DV or daily value or something else similar to that. And this heading refers to the information at the bottom of the label which states percent daily values are based on a 2,000-calorie diet. The daily value is the amount of each nutrient that's considered sufficient for most healthy adults. A food that contains anywhere from 10% to 19% of the daily value is considered a good source of that nutrient. Okay? So this will give you an idea of where it stands with healthy things. And then the last part of the label, which may not be on every label, because it depends on how big the package is. This is the information at the bottom of the label. This, again, is based on a 2,000-calorie diet. It's also applicable in other countries. This information is the dietary advice from public health experts for all Americans and is the same for all products. Okay? So one serving, if you look at the macaroni and cheese example again, one serving would provide 18% of the daily value of the possible 100% daily value for your total fat intake. That leaves 82% that you would consume from other sources for the day. If you ate 2 servings, which is probably what most of us would eat, we would now consume 36% of our daily value for fat, leaving 64% to be consumed from other sources. See, again, everything is based on an arbitrary serving size. Not what you and I might eat, but what the company says you should eat so that they can say no fat, no calories. So now that you've seen what's on a product label, let's talk about some of the pitfalls when we try and diet and we plateau or we fail to diet. One of them, the very first one, and probably one of the most important, is artificial sweeteners. If you're going to use a sweetener that doesn't contain sugar, use a natural sweetener like stevia. If you use aspartame or any of the similar ones like sucralose, which is Splenda, they all say sweet like sugar. Well, the reason why they're sweet like sugar is, first of all, they downsized the serving size so that there's 5 calories or less of sugar in there, so they can say there's no sugar. And the reason it tastes like sugar, or it tastes as sweet as sugar, is that the filler that they use is dextrose, which is another name for glucose or sugar, and maltodextrin, which is another name for sugar. So, yeah, it tastes sweet like sugar because it has sugar. And, you know, I was thinking last night as I was reviewing these slides, my brother-in-law, who had a very severe form of diabetes, used to stay away from sugar, and he put 10 or 15 of these packages of the pink stuff with the blue stuff in his sugar, in his tea, so he could sugar it with artificial sugar. And I started calculating the number of calories he was actually getting from sugar, and made controlling his diabetes very difficult. So artificial sweeteners you should stay away from, aside from the fact that most of them are just one molecule away from being formaldehyde, and they cause other health problems to begin with. But natural sweeteners are much better.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I was just going to say, could you address sugar alcohols at this time also? Because they don't have to be counted either, I don't believe. No,
sugar alcohols do not have to be counted, but that's the alcohol form of the sugar. So when you look at xylose, for instance, xylose is a glyconutrient that's very important in cell-to-cell communication and to help maintain our immunity. As a matter of fact, xylose should be in our diet to a small extent because people that consume xylose, not the sugar alcohol form, which is called xylitol, but xylose protects against about 30 or 40 different types of cancers. And people who do consume large amounts of xylose in their diets have a lower incidence of cancer than we do. The alcohol form is very, very sweet, and it's not put on the label, but it can give you tons of calories, and these are not nutritious calories. So you should watch for products that are high in sorbitol or maltitol or xylitol. These are sugar alcohols of xylose, maltose, and whatever I said the third one was. They're just a sugar alcohol, but they contain non-nutrient calories.
I noticed that on the bars that everybody thinks, well, these are good protein bars or high in protein, no sugar, only 2 sugars or something very low. And I say, well, taste them. Do they taste sweet? And they say, yeah, they're sweet. And I said, well, they got sugar in them. Let's read the label. And when they read the label, they've got all kinds of sugar alcohols in them. And, you know, they're just loaded with sugar. And people think, well, I can't lose weight, but I'm having a bar a day for my snack. Well, you know, it's very obvious what's happening here because they're just loading up with that sugar.
Exactly. So, again, now that we're armed with what's on the labels, it should be easier for us after you've spent one day on your learning curve going back and taking your favorite food substances and looking to see, is it really as healthy as I think it is? Am I eating the serving size, or am I eating more or less? How do I have to adjust my calories? I mean, that's very, very important. So artificial sweeteners can be snuck in there, but next time you look at, you go to a restaurant, pick up one of the pink packages or blue packages, and you'll see it contains maltodextrin or dextrose, which is a uncommon way of for the lay public to know sugar. If you've ever had IV fluids, you have D5W. That's 5% dextrose in water. That's sugar. We need the sugar. So dextrose is another way of saying it's just pure sugar. So look at the artificial sweetener. You'll see that as long as you're just taking one package, that's 5 calories, even though it says 0.
Yeah.
The other thing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. The next thing I want to talk.
Yeah, let me just say, let's stay with sugar just a second more, Alan. I was in the grocery store yesterday and looking at the yogurts, the Octavias or the Greek yogurts or some of all of them in there. And I noticed that they are, just for half a cup of serving of a yogurt, they had 23 grams of sugar or 17 grams of sugar, just for a fourth of a cup, some of them. And I'm looking at that and adding up the serving size for a whole cup, that what you get of sugar in yogurt. And if when you look at your yogurt labels, it shouldn't have more than 9 grams of sugar per cup serving, and the protein should be up in the 20s of protein. So many people are thinking they're having yogurt and it's so wonderful for them, but one of them had, for half a cup, a Greek yogurt with honey in it, had 23 grams of sugar in it. Well, if you're on a 1,250 calorie diet, you shouldn't have more than 36 grams of sugar all day long. So, bingo, it's pretty obvious that these sugars are hidden in there, and you need to read them, especially on yogurts. Yeah, that's a real pitfall there.
Arlene, the other thing that I've noticed is if you go and buy yogurt when it's on sale, so you buy the store brand, those are the ones that contain 30 grams of sugar in a serving size. And the serving size may be maybe like a half or a third of that cup. The more expensive ones tend to have a lower amount of sugar, but they also have more protein, which is obviously what we want to put in our bodies.
Exactly.
So again, you have to read those labels very carefully. I was really surprised to see it go anywhere from 9 grams to 30 grams in a small container.
Yeah.
But again, look at the serving size. It may not be enough for us to eat. So if you have to double it or triple it, all of a sudden you get 3 times the number of calories. All right, the next thing is fat-free. Again, if it contains less than a half a gram of fat, either as any fat or trans fat, they can label it fat-free. And this is what really troubled me. I mean, I'm a gourmet cook. I cook healthily, but sometimes I use a cooking spray to coat the bottom of my pants and nothing sticks. Well, for all of those products to say fat-free, you have to look at the serving size. The serving size is 1/5 of a second of spray. You know how much that is? I just sprayed 1/5 of a second. How many times can you do that I mean, I spray 4 or 5 seconds to coat the bottom of the pan, and I've just added between 80 and 100 calories to whatever I'm cooking, and I didn't realize that. Most people don't because, again, it's based on serving size. So one way to tell if something is fat-free, especially the cooking sprays, is to look for oil on the label ingredient. If it says it's fat-free and it has oil, guess what? It has calories from fat. It's not fat-free. And most of the time it is trans fats. So that's another way. If you see oil in the ingredients, now that you know how to read a label, and it says 0 fat, they just lied to you through the loophole of the law. Also look for partially hydrogenated on the label. Partially hydrogenated is another word for fat, plain old fat, and it's also trans fat. And these are the things that you want to stay away from. Okay? So let me just summarize about fat. If it's fat-free, it means that on the serving size, it's less than 0.5 gram of fat. If it's low fat, it's 3 grams of fat or less per serving. If it's lean, it's less than 10 grams of fat, 4.5 which grams are saturated fat, and no more than 95 milligrams of cholesterol per serving. Light just means it's a third less calories. So if your favorite cookie has 1,000 calories of fat, serving size, and they now say these are light, then that means that there's only 700. Okay? And light to me means, they've taken out most of the fat. Oh, that's not what the law says. And cholesterol-free, again, is less than 2 milligrams of cholesterol and 2 grams or less of fat, saturated fat, per serving. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And one thing about fats that people I don't think realize is anything that has been baked in a bakery or anything that's a mix, like a cake mix, a cookie mix, or any of those cooks, it all have trans fats in them, and they will kill you. It's been noted that I was reading that smoking is more dangerous. Eating those kind of foods with trans fats in is more dangerous to you than smoking is. And we don't think of that because we've become so immune, and we love our Oreos, and we love the cookies or the cakes or the breads that we eat in the bakeries. But if they have anything that says, like you said, with hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated, you are eating trans fats, and they will kill you. It's just a known fact. So,
Arlene, have you ever noticed when somebody's come out with a lighter version of their product, if you've ever used the full version and then gone to the lighter version, it doesn't taste as good?
Yeah.
The number of calories from sugars are the same. It's the fat that makes the taste different.
Yeah. Well, anything that says fat-free, too, you look at those labels, and they'll increase your sugar. If it says it's sugar-light, they'll increase the fat. So they're going to because the fat and the sugar are addictive, and that's where they're coming from.
Right. Stefan, what was that last question that flashed by quickly?
I don't. Hello, Stefan?
Whoever asked
I'm here. I'm here. I was on mute. What's the question?
There was a question that just flashed by, and I didn't get all of it. So whoever asked it, if they would ask it again, I'll be happy to answer it.
The last question I see here is from Gilbert. He says, is it okay to use coconut oil for cooking?
Oh, okay, cooking. Coconut oil is fine. Olive oil is much better because it's polyunsaturated, much better than the coconut. But coconut's a safe alternative. I can recommend a great olive oil from the Napa Valley area. Right, Gilbert?
Yeah. I also noticed that people are wondering. Yeah.
Go ahead, Arlene.
I was just looking at some of the questions, and they want to know which yogurts are best. Yogurts, there are some yogurts out there with only 9 grams of sugar per serving. One is Fage that I use, and it has 22 grams of protein in it. But if you're looking at a yogurt that has 17 to 23 grams of sugar, don't do it. Just don't do it. Look for the 9 grams of sugar. But I just noticed that was one of the questions.
Yeah, Alan, if you click at the top in the little comment next to the phone, right, there's a little chat box. If you click on that, it's going to pull up all the questions that people are asking.
One thing about olive oil, I noticed someone asked about that too. And olive oil it doesn't have a very high heat. What do you call that? You can only heat it to a certain degree of temperature. And when you overheat it, like if it smokes, if you're using olive oil, and it starts to smoke, then you've turned that olive oil into trans fats. So you can turn your own oil into trans fats just by overheating them. The best way, if you're going to saute something, is to put water in it and saute with water, because that way that's a European way of sauteing. They don't do it with oil, and then you don't risk the fact of turning your oil into trans fats. I find that your canola oil, it has a higher temperature so that you can cook with it better than you can with the olive oil. I'd stay away from using olive oil to cook in because the temperature is too low.
Well, it's interesting because I only cook with olive oil, but I've changed my lifestyle so that I don't have to worry about cooking at high heat. So I eat healthier just using the olive oil, and actually olive oils will help reduce your LDL cholesterol and raise your HDL cholesterol.
Mm-hmm. It just keeps the temperature low.
Right, exactly. Gilbert mentions that most olive oils are not 100% olive oil, but blended, and that's absolutely true. I only use pure olive oil when I cook. Where does canola oil come from? I used to think it was a good oil. I stay away from it. I've heard, I've not been able to confirm it, but I've heard from several reputable sources that canola is just another name for vegetable oil, which is not safe, and it's an abbreviation for Canada oil. So it's vegetable oil that comes from Canada, but I stay away from canola oil.
I thought that canola came from the canola plant. That it's like a wheat plant that grows.
It could, but again, I stay mostly with extra virgin olive oil.
Like wheat.
Yes. See, Gary says he heard it stands for Canada oil also. I'm looking to see if there are any other questions that I haven't answered yet. Yeah, if hydrogenated is mentioned on the label, stay away from it.
I was just reading the questions here. The viewer number 17 has lost so much weight. I don't know who they are, but congratulations on that. They just made a comment.
Arlene, I think this one's for you. Viewer 28 asked, where do you get this yogurt from?
I get mine from Sam's. They have it there on sale. They get the big quart size for $4. I've also seen Fage in like in Whole Foods stores. That's usually where I find mine.
How do you spell that, Arlene?
F-A-G-E, Fage. It's French. It's français.
Viewer 17 is Gilbert. I knew that because Gilbert and I have been talking about this. He's lost all that weight. He's done really well.
Yes, congratulations, Gilbert. A lot of good questions there. Have you guys looked at all of them yet?
Avocado oil is also a good one. I'm not 100% sure what the heat index is, but again, very seldom do I ever use vegetable oil. And another thing, for people who have allergies to certain food ingredients, like peanuts. Peanuts are vegetables, so they can be included in vegetable oils and not put on the label. But they do not have to label as being dangerous to people with peanut allergies. And if you have a peanut allergy, that does not necessarily mean that you have a nut allergy, a tree nut allergy, because peanuts grow on the ground and nuts grow in the air. So totally different. It's another reason to stay away from just vegetable oil.
Yeah. One thing we haven't addressed, Ellen, and I want to get your opinion on this before we leave, because a lot of people are staying in the Flinderized program preferred list. Foods, yogurt or dairy products are not listed there. Was there a reason for that, or is it just because it just didn't get printed?
Thank you for reminding me, because we had talked about this earlier in the week. A lot of people have problems with dairy, and when you design a weight loss program around dairy, you're going to exclude a lot of people. So I was sitting in the parking lot the other day waiting for my family to come out of a store. I watched this woman slap out this big 5-pound jug of whey protein for weight loss from GNC, and I wanted to run up to her and say, "Get your money back. You're not going to lose weight on it." You have to understand that when you start using whey protein, it concentrates. You know what? It takes, 10 pounds of milk to make 1 pound of cheese? Think of all the protein and calories that are in cheese compared to just drinking the milk. I've always told my patients when they say, "Oh, now that my child's a year of age, how much milk should they drink?" I say, "Well, if they're going to drink breast milk, they can drink as much as they want. But if you're going to give them cow's milk, they don't need any, because cow's milk is for cows and breast milk is for kids." So that's why we want to stay away from dairy. We don't do well on it, at least a good percentage of us. And so to base a lifestyle change on dairy doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Yeah. I was reading one of the bars. Like I say, I do a lot of reading when I go to grocery stores, and one bar is a protein bar. It said, increase your daily water consumption by doubling it, and be sure and drink lots of water. And I thought to myself, well, it must have a lot of dry milk in it, products in it. And it said it would hurt your, it didn't, I don't know what the words they used, but basically it meant it was going to stop up your digestive system.
Or your kidneys, one of the two. Mm-hmm. Now, this week is finals week for my nursing students, and I told them at the beginning of the quarter that if they reached a certain benchmark, in lieu of a final exam, I would take them on a field trip. And we're going to go to an organic market on Tuesday, and I'm going to teach them to read labels. And, if you've ever seen deer in the headlights, these students are going to, they tease me because I told them they can't drink the water from school because the water contains bacteria. And I told them they have to watch their diets. So they learn about all of RX's products one way or the other, and so now they're all convinced that I can't scare them anymore. Tuesday, they're going to be scared again. They won't want to ever read a label, but it's important because it will tell you what the company's trying to hide from you.
Very good. Stefan, do you see any more questions there that we need to answer, or should I open up the lines and see if someone has some questions they'd just like to ask?
Yeah, maybe just open the line, because there's a lot of things going on. Let's do that.
So, what did you say? I'm sorry.
No, just everyone, you're welcome to talk, to speak, and if you didn't get your question, that's the time.
Does RX have a list of, the glycemic index, food choices, and then like lists of fiber choices? I know there's probably a lot of stuff on the internet, but Does RX have one?
I don't know
Not
of
that I
any.
know of.
I don't know any of them. If you go into Dr. Strand's Healthy for Life book, in his appendix, he has a list of foods, high glycemic foods. I learned about them by just Googling it on the internet, just a list of low glycemic foods or high. And there's a division out there, I don't remember the name of it, that has gone through all the foods that we eat, processed foods mainly, and, well, even some fruits and vegetables they've even gone through. And they give you a rundown of exactly where they stand in high, and what's their number in high glycemic foods. So that would be my recommendation, is just Google it yourself. But as I know, we don't, Alan, I don't think the advisory board has done anything with that, have they?
No. Somewhere on one of my websites, I do have the index of some of the more common things, and I'll look for that, and if I can find it, we'll post it.
So are fruits and vegetables pretty much all fiber, have fiber content in them?
Say that again?
Fruits and vegetables, are they, you mean, contain a lot of the fiber that we need?
Yes. Organic contains more.
So, but with your fruits and vegetables, another thing that you need to look at is how ripe they are. If when you, like a banana, if you eat a banana that's kind of solid and bright white, it will be less low glycemic because the fructose isn't as easy to, it doesn't digest as quickly. But if you eat a banana that's soft and kind of a darker brown, it will turn to sugar quite rapidly. So your glycemic index will change according to how ripe your fruits or vegetables are, or how old they are, because they mature. And Ellen, maybe you can explain this a little better than I am, but the molecules change, and so therefore they're easier to break down in the digestive, in the stomach, and they turn to glucose a little faster.
What happens is it's all part of the ripening or over-ripening of fruits and vegetables. A number of times I've mentioned that in Kansas City in the wintertime, we get all our fruits and vegetables. If we get them from this country, we get them from California or from Florida. But by the time they're picked and delivered to our grocery stores here, they have to be picked 2 weeks earlier. Otherwise, they will go ahead and be rotten by the time they come to Kansas City. And what they would do when they got to the Colorado-Kansas border, which is still 500 miles from where I live, they would bomb the back of the trucks with ethylene gas to ripen green bananas so they turn yellow, or green tomatoes to turn red. And it turns out that Mother Nature has it all planned. Most fruits and vegetables will exude this gas. So something is very ripe. It's broken down all the nutrients much quicker. And that's from the ethylene gas. And so to impede that, and maybe even to lower the glycemic index, they now have, you can find it on Home Shopping Network, I believe, special containers that will absorb the ethylene gas so that fruits and vegetables will stay for weeks in your refrigerator instead of becoming rotten very quickly. And that may change the glycemic.
Very good. Good question. Good question.
Somebody asked about living fuel. I've never heard of that.
Okay, we got some noise here. Can you? Yeah, good. Thank you. You need to mute your phones so we can keep them open.
Arlene, I'm just going to check your keep your line open. That's fine. I'm just going to check who it is.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Can we have people tell us who they are? And ask a question. If you typed it and we haven't answered it, speak out.
Hey, Alan, this is Marcus.
Yes.
I switched to blue 100% organic blue agave sweetener, and I heard...
We can barely hear you, Marcus.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the blue agave sweetener.
Uh-huh.
You know, I've heard rumors that it's just basically sugar. Is that true?
It's not a rumor. It's not a rumor. It's true. It's pure sugar.
Okay. So it's just marketing hype.
I mean, again, if you see agave as a sweetener, look at the number of calories.
Okay. So stevia is the best sweetener then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. So I had asked a question. I repeated a question somebody had asked. Anybody ever hear of living protein? I'm going to have to look that one up. I've never heard of it. Sounds like a marketing concept.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, good morning, everyone. Tatiana Sutherland. Just thank you, Alan, for presentation. I would like to add, if you don't mind, I started using raw coconut nectar, which is low glycemic, 100% organic, gluten-free, non-GMO, and vegan. And you can buy it in a health food store, and it's amazing. So I completely replace it with, using that instead of. So it was my revelation.
What was the name of it again?
It is called nectar, coconut nectar, NECTAR. It's low glycemic sweetener, which is 100% organic, gluten-free, non-GMO, and it's great.
Wonderful.
Thank you. That's
thank you
good
for
to know.
that, yes.
Thank you.
And Gary, thank you for your comment on canola oil. Low uric acid rapeseed oil crossbred by a scientist in Saskatoon. The name canola is derived from Canadian oil, low acidity. Canola. Interesting. Okay.
Very good. Yes, thank you for that. Well, I think we're at the top of the hour and a little bit over, and I like to keep this. I know everybody's busy, so Alan, I appreciate everything you've told us today. I think that is absolutely wonderful. In summary, I think you've really done a fantastic job in bringing us, making us aware of first, look at your sizes. The first step would be to look at that serving size and adjust our measurements according to that. And that's, I think, something that we all could do. That it would be the first step that we need to do. And then maybe look at your value of your daily, the percentage of daily value. So if it's something that you shouldn't have, like sodium or something, maybe it should have a low value. If it's something like fiber or vitamin C or A, it should have a high value. So anything above, what did you say, 20% would be a high value, and anything below 5% would be a low value, somewhere in that range?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, again, if you've got a product that contains 5% of the daily value for sodium, that might be good.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't want something that contained 5% or less of, for instance, vitamin C, which is something we need every day.
Yeah. So the value, sometimes I've never looked at the percentage of daily values. I just have never really understood them. So with this explanation that you've given us today, that's so enlightening, to be able to just kind of really quickly look at that, and that's a good evaluation of what I'm doing, and then look at the sugars and start adding up all the different kinds of sugars in there, and realizing that if I compacted those all together, that would probably be the first ingredient that I have, water being the first and that being the second, or something like that. So, excellent. I
Exactly.
appreciate that. Yeah. Stefan, did you have anything you wanted to add, or anybody else, before we close the call this morning? Marcus?
This is Gary. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sure.
I have a lot of friends since I'm in my 60s, so I have a lot of friends that are diabetic, and they are very tough nuts to crack when it comes to trying to get them off of their thinking concerning diabetes and foods and so forth. And this thing that you're talking about, because most of them use the artificial sweeteners. They use lots of the pink and blue packs in all their drinks and their everything, and they use aspartame and everything in cooking, and it's just incredible. So, can you go over one more time what you said about the number of grams of sugar that can be in there, and they can still call it zero?
Okay, I'd be happy to. If you look at the serving, if you read the package, it says filler, maltodextrin, or dextrose. Mm-hmm. That's another name for regular sugar. And if it contains 5 calories or less, then they can say no calories. So if they put 5
calories or less, okay.
Right. So if they put 5 packages in a large glass of iced tea, which I see frequently done, they just added 25 calories of sugar.
So is your favorite sweetener by far the liquid stevia?
Yes.
Yeah, mine too. That's what I'm trying to. But it's a little bit difficult to carry around in your pocket, a bottle of.
So you can get Truvia, which is the same. It comes in packages.
Yeah, they have tons of filler in there, though. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I know, but you have to look at the pluses and the minuses. For all your friends that have diabetes that can't get their heads wrapped around the artificial sweeteners, just tell them that I'm a diabetic, and I've gotten off of these.
Right there. So you're a diabetic? I didn't know that. So,
yep. And
are you
Slenderized? I'm type 2. And because of Slenderized and diet change and lifestyle change, I'm off of all my diabetes meds except for one. And I just upset my endocrinologist because when I went in for my visit a month ago, he says, what prescriptions are you on? And I said, just one. He goes, I gave you 6 prescriptions. I said, I haven't been on a lot of these for a long time. He says, how do you feel? I said, I haven't felt this good in years. And he says, we'll see about that. I'm going to get your lab results, and I'm going to show you that you're doing the wrong thing. So I said, okay, I'll be my guest. So he drew the blood, and then coming back 3 or 4 days later, and I said, so what's my A1C, which is an indicator of how well my diabetes has been controlled for the last 90 days. And he says, 6.1. I go, what, Michael? I didn't hear you. 6.1. And what's normal? He said 6.1. I said, oh, okay. I said, what about the rest of my lab work? He says, it was all normal. I said, okay. So what do you want to know? Are you going to take any of the medicines that I gave you? I said, I'll let you know in 3 months.
So can we honestly say, I mean, this is it's almost like, I don't know. Can we honestly say to a type 2 diabetic, if you will get your diet right, if you will exercise, if you will follow a good program, that you can eventually get off your meds? Is that I mean, I'm just...
Better way of putting it would be if you change your lifestyle, if you eat healthy, if you exercise, your body may regain the ability to make you sensitive to your own influence. Studies and studies and studies have shown this. You just can't say you can cure diabetes by taking these products.
Right. So it's most of the time it's not that you can't create insulin, it's that your body is just insulin resistant, right?
For type 2 diabetes and for obesity, that's the case. Because, we think of it, if I asked you what insulin, 99% of the people will tell me it lowers your blood sugar. But very few people will tell me that it allows us to be able to mobilize fats from our liver, our muscles, and our heart to digest for energy because of insulin resistance. That's why type 2 diabetics are overweight or obese. So when you start losing the weight, you become insulin sensitive again. I make insulin. I'm not a type 1 diabetic where I don't have the capacity to make insulin. That's different. But most of the people in the United States and now the kids that are overweight are becoming what are called type 3 diabetics. They're juvenile onset, but they really look like they're adults because they're overweight, they're insulin resistant, and things can change by right diet and by right supplementation. You got to understand that most of the basis for supplementation is what Mother Nature provided in her nutrition thousands of years ago. That we don't provide anymore.
Boy, I tell you, we could get some people on the line just having a call just for diabetics. Oh my gosh.
Oh, absolutely, because it makes sense that if you eat your way to diabetes, that you can uneat your way to be normal again.
That's great.
So, and I'm a living example of that because I was looking at I still have my meds in my cabinet, and I was looking at them the other day, going, "Oh, I haven't been on you." And of course, if I take you for too long, my risk for bladder cancer is 40%. I don't take you because I get all sorts of side effects that I don't get anymore because I don't take you. So I'm looking, and unfortunately, I heard a lecture from Paul Zane Pilzer, the economist, the other day. The drug companies are not there to cure anything. The drug companies are there to take care of symptoms so that somebody is on a product every day for the rest of their lives. Well, the average 65-year-old, which is the age group that your friends and my friends are, they're on 25 to 30 meds a day, half of which are for conditions, the other half are to control side effects of the first half of drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, the drug companies are the biggest drug pushers we've got.
Yeah. So explain type 3 again. Type 3 is type 2 in children?
It's type 2 in children, but they act like type 1, which is insulin deficient, but they look like type 2s, which are insulin sensitive.
So are they actually not producing insulin, or are they still producing insulin?
They're still producing some insulin.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary. That's very informative. Very, very informative. Is there anybody else before we close the call?
Yeah,
and Marcus and Stefan, jump in if you need to.
Dr. Organ?
Yes.
This is Marcus. I was diagnosed pre-diabetic before I got on the weight loss program, and then I had my blood work done and everything. Everything's normal now, and is there any insight that you can provide as far as the Slenderize program for in connection with diabetes? Like it was getting pretty bad. In fact, we were at the lake yesterday, and we watched a guy actually go into cardiac arrest. He's trying to get back in his boat, and I could hear them say, "Oh, he's diabetic," and the paramedics arrived and tried to revive him with CPR. And his belly was very large, and he's younger than I am. And I was just thinking, wow, that could have been me.
Absolutely. I mean, when you reset your hypothalamic set point for fat storage, you can become less leptin resistant, so that your body has the feedback that I had enough to eat, so that you don't overeat, you don't excessively store calories as fat, because along with that fat, you store everything else you've consumed, all the toxins that you've been exposed to, all the drugs that you're on. And so it gets to the snowball coming down a mountainside. After control, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and unfortunately cardiac arrest is a big complication for diabetics. You know, it was funny because my 28-year-old daughter, yesterday as we were walking in the mall, she says, "I worry about you every day, Dad." I go, "Just because I'm 65 doesn't mean I'm going to drop dead from a heart attack." I said, "I can outwalk you, I can outrun you, I can outperform you, and that's because I've changed the way I live." I said, "A lot of my friends are in their 80s who are in perfect health because they've done the same thing." I said, it can be done. We're programmed to live 120 years without a lot of disease. We just have to go back to using all the things that our ancestors did and stay away from some of these fast food, highly processed, highly palatable, low nutritious diets that we're on. So Sunrise definitely will help bring everything back to more normal.
Thanks.
All righty. Well, let's just go out now and do what we've learned. Eat healthy and live longer. I'm assuming that this recording will be up on Upline Update. Is that correct, Marcus?
Yes, it will. And I'm actually going to take that little last piece, the last 15 minutes of the audio, because on diabetes, and make sure it's compliant and everything, but make that available to everyone, because I know I've got a lot of friends with diabetes.
Thank you.
I think
we
it's important.
Appreciate that. That would be wonderful, because I work with diabetics all the time. That would be absolutely fabulous. Well, I can just say a big thanks, and Stefan, I think you'll agree with me that this has been a fabulous call, and I appreciate all you that stayed on this. I mean, our calls, we've tried to keep them at an hour, but the last couple ones have been so informative and so full of great information that I just challenge you to go out and read your labels, stay away from those hidden sugars, and lose lots of weight. So I just want to say goodbye and thank you to everyone that's been on this call. It's been a wonderful time, and a great big applaud, and thank you to Dr. Allen for his wonderful way of sharing his information. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.